good day to brew, baby. One is YouTube, it's your boy Millsy, back with the hometown commander, and we are back for Millsy Brews, showing my version 1.0 deck list of the commander in front of us on my quest to outbrew the Magic world. Today we're covering our last official deck from Lost Caverns of Ixalan. I've had a ton of fun with this set. I hope that you guys have had fun with this set too. It's brought a lot of really cool things to a lot of really cool kindreds or tribes, depending on what you want to call them. Dinos, merfolk, vampires, pirates getting a bunch of big updates, a bunch of other creature types. Fungi got a big set, glow up this set. We'll talk about a couple of the new cats in this video that we got, and so many other really cool things. So I hope that you guys have enjoyed my brewing content for this set, and we won't be done with Lost Caverns of Ixalan. In the future, we'll probably go back and catch some of the commanders I didn't get. But today, we're talking about Sovereign Okinec Ahau. Is that what it is? I don't think I've ever looked at I apologize. I don't think I looked at the third. I apologize. I hadn't looked at the third word of the name. It's just Okinec that I had paid attention to. But this is a 4-mana Cat Noble 3/4 with Ward 2. Whenever it attacks, for each creature you control with power greater than that creature's base power, we put a number of +1/+1 counters on that creature equal to the difference. Both Sovereign Okinec and Kutzel, Element Exemplar, were two cards that I immediately looked at and said, ooh, those are cards I should consider for one of the decks that I personally love, my Jetmir Nexus or Rebels deck. Both of them care about your creatures dealing damage to your opponents and getting benefit for it in odd ways. Jetmir is a deck that goes wide and wants creatures to deal combat damage, and they're both cats, and of course Jetmir is a cat. So that Jetmir deck is not cat, tribal, or kindred, it's just a tokens deck. But both of these seem like good pieces for that deck. But I said, we should look at Selesnya cats. I don't think I've ever looked at Selesnya cats since Orobo was originally released as the precon. We haven't really gotten any true, I think, cat commanders that have made people look the other way. We've gotten something like Kira, companion, that gives cats +1/+1 in vigilance, of course, which is something people cared about. And of course, we have something like Miri, which is a commander in its own right. But I thought, why don't we take a look at, one, trying to buff our creatures up, which is actually pretty easy with the amount of cards that we have, and two, let's do cat kindred or cat tribal, and let's play with some fun cats and see what we can do. And as it turns out, there's a lot of cats that make it better than you think it is, as far as getting our opponents to have, our creatures to have bigger powers than they normally do to get all of those tokens. Okay, well, our basis is cats. And they're running 26 creatures, 25 of them being cats, one of them not being a cat, and that is Roaming Throne. It is a cat when it comes in, but it is going to double our commander's ability every turn, giving our creatures more and more counters. It's also going to double all the other triggered abilities of all the cats we control, which is the rest of our creatures. So unfortunately, we can't play that Kahira as a companion because we do have this Roaming Throne, but I think that's completely okay. Roaming Throne is going to be more than well worth the 4 mana when it comes down. We have things like Pride Sovereign, who we can tap to exert it to make 2 cat tokens. Leonin War Leader is going to make 2 tokens that are tapped and attacking with lifelink every time it attacks, which is going to help us get more creatures on board. Regal Caracol comes in with 2 cats when it comes in. And probably Steel Legion plays double duty in our deck. One, giving our creatures tokens +1/+4, which is going to help them get the bonus for Okinec's ability, but the second is being able to make tokens for 4 mana. Now, yes, Prava's tokens are not cats, and we don't particularly care about it at that point. We are playing things that buff cats, but we're also playing things that buff things in general. So we're not as worried about those tokens not being cats. But the point is that we have ways to make more creatures. We're not just playing creatures straight out. We're trying to also make more creatures on the board so that we get more counters with Okinec's ability. Okay, well, how are we going to buff our board, right? Okinec's ability works best when our creatures in combat have their powers greater than they were already where they're being buffed by enchantments or creatures effects. So I'm just going to go through a bunch of the ways we've built into the deck to make our creatures' power higher than they already are. First is our only Planeswalker, Johnny the Great-Hearted. He felt like he needed to be in the Cats deck. Creatures we control have Vigilance, which is a great ability on its own. Being able to attack and then block is going to be key. And I tried to put enough of the Sky Hunter Leonin in here that have flying so that we can help block against those flyer decks. But it's -2s that we really care about. Put a +1/+1 counter on each creature we control and a loyalty counter on each other planeswalker control. Again, putting that counter on all of our creatures and then moving to attack is going to allow them to get more counters with Okinec, and then they're actually going to get more, more and more each turn exponentially as we double and double and double and double the amount of counters that are being put on our creatures that way. Arbo, Roar of the Wild, says at the beginning of combat on your turn, if it is in the command zone or on the battlefield, target cat gets +3/+3 until end of turn. And then whenever a cat we control attacks, we can pay 3. If we do, it gains trample and +X/+X, where X is power. This is great because we can pick maybe a cat in the air, or even pick Okinec itself and make it bigger and threaten commander damage. This is also just make some of our cats even bigger to start hurting our opponents. So I like it. It buffs one creature, but it does still do something. Feline Sovereign, giving all of our cats +1/+1 and protection from dogs. And again, that's important because this is just going to flat buff all of our cats, and now all of them should be getting counters when Okinec's out. And then it also can destroy artifact or enchantments whenever one of our cats deal combat damage to a player, which should help push our opponents down a teeny bit. King of the Pride has one of the better buff abilities for all the cards we have. 3 mana for a cat that gives other cats +2/+1. And that's pretty great because that means 2 counters a turn to start with Okinec, and it just gets bigger and bigger. So this is a kind of even better than something like Glorious Anthem, because it's just going to get us more counters that way. And then Kutzil, although it doesn't directly increase things' power, it's still important whenever more creatures deal with greater than its base power deal damage to a player, we draw cards. I think this just pairs really well with Okinec in drawing us cards. And again, opponents can't cast spells during our turn, so hopefully they can't stop us when we're in combat. But we are playing a couple enchantments and things like that to help us out. Always Watching, non-token creatures we control get +1/+1 in Vigilance. So again, now our creatures can attack and then block. Felidar Retreat can give us more cat tokens or put +1/+1 counters on every creature and give them vigilance whenever a land comes in. Again, this is great because, again, the counters will lead to more counters with Okinec's ability. Flowering of the White Tree, giving our legendary creatures +2/+1 and our non-legendaries 1/1. Again, this is a 2-mana enchantment that's doing all of that, and we will take it again, just making our creatures bigger and bigger. Mirari's Wake, +1/+1 to everything. And getting extra mana for 5 mana seems pretty cool, especially again once Okinec starts putting all those counters on those creatures. Radiant Destiny comes in. We're going to choose cats. Cats get +1/+1, and then as soon as we have 10 or more permanents, they also get vigilance. Again, great just to give them that flat buff for 3 mana. Every cat comes in and has access to that +1/+1 right away. If we have other ways to give them haste or things like that, we're going to pair these buffs with something like Garruk's Uprising to give them trample, so we can help through harder. But we also snuck that Tribute to the World tree in. Whenever a creature comes in, if its power is 3 or less, it gets 2 +1/+1 counters. Otherwise, we draw a card. Again, just a way to get those creatures down with, again, power equal to their or greater than their base power, so they can get those counters from Okinec. So as you can see, we're trying to play some of these ways to kind of increase our creature's power. Something as well like Pledge of Unity to put a counter on everything and then get them ready for that combat where they get boosted up. But we're also playing a little bit of an equipment sub-theme. There are some cats that care about equipment, and so I thought, why not play some fun equipment that can help us out? 2 of the main cats we're playing that care about that are Kemba Conjuring. Whenever another cat enters the battlefield, we can attach up to 1 equipment to that creature, and equipped creatures get +1/+1. And then Kemba Ka Regent is giving our upkeep. We make a 2/2 cat for each equipment attached to Kemba. So this just gives us some fun targets. We also have something like Miri, where they can't block with more than 1 creature if it attacks. So that's going to help us not only get Miri through for some more damage if we're giving it trample and a buff with equipment, but it's going to help all other creatures, and then they can't hit us back with as much. But those are creatures that we really want to get equipment onto. But let's talk about the few pieces of equipment we decided to go with. We're playing that new Anduril from the Aragorn scene box because it's really helpful. Whenever a equipped creature attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. If you have the City's Blessing, put 2 +1/+1 counters on each creature instead. And this is pretty great because then we can put this trigger above Okinec's trigger, meaning that they're going to get a counter or 2 from this, and then they're going to get more counters from Okinec's regular attack ability. And that means with this attached to Okinec or another creature when Okinec's attacking, this is just going to get our board bigger and bigger. Hammer of Nizan, +2/+0 and indestructible. Not a bad thing for our commander or another creature we really care about attacking. Loxodon Warhammer, +3/+0, trample and lifelink. Again, great way to get a creature those extra counters when Okinec's attacking, and trample and lifelink to help them get some benefit back. Same thing with Shadow Spear, +1/+1, trample and lifelink. Again, the bigger those creatures are, the more we're dealing with and the more we're getting back in life. Stoneforge Masterwork's kind of a lot of fun. Quick creature gets pulse on for each other creature that shares a type with it. It's kind of a mini coat of arms for just one creature. And I like this again. Put this on something, get a bunch of counters from it. The thing I like about Masterwork is, just like the rest of our equipment, we could move them around to different creatures each combat to get them those +1/+1 counters. The reason I like that the most for Masterwork is if we have 10 cats, we attach this to a cat, it attacks, it's getting 9 +1/+1 counters from Okinec as long as it's attacking, and then we can move that Forge work around. We can move the Masterwork around because it did its thing. It got something, a bunch of counters, and we can probably build a pretty big board that way if it's allowed to go unchecked. And then Sword of Truth and Justice, whenever that deals combat damage to a player, +1/+1 counter on it, and then proliferate, just to add some more counters and get ourselves, pushing through for more damage. But that's my goal there. Get the board wide. Maybe get some equipment on things, get some buffs on our creatures, attack, get the +1/+1 counters, and if we can get vigilance, that's even better because then we can block and help stop our opponents from hitting us on the crackback. But like I've said in every episode, whenever you build a deck, especially version 1.0 decklist of decks, you're always going to have cards that you thought about but didn't make the cut. And I just want to go over a couple cards that I really wanted to put in, but didn't for one reason or another. And these would be the cards I would recommend you take a look at when you're testing or if you're building a Okinec deck of your own to think about. The first is Coat of Arms. Like I said, this is that Stoneforge Masterwork type ability. But again, this happens for all of our creatures, and this will give that massive +1/+1 exponential growth to all of our creatures as well. This is probably worth it over something like Radiant Destiny, I'm sure. I was just trying to get a good mix of effects that when we go to test a deck like this, you could start to see what effects work better and then maybe work that in. You know what I mean? Instead of one of those cards, maybe instead of always watching, you throw this in, right? Or one of those type abilities. Thought about Kemba's Banner. It has for Mirrodin, so it comes in with a rebel you can attach this to, or you can move this around, but it says quick creature gets +1/+1 for each creature you control. Again, just like the Masterwork, another way to start handing out a ton of +1/+1 counters to the creature you choose, and then we could start systematically hitting for harder and harder damage. And then Virtue of Loyalty. We care about the +1/+1 counters, but I like Virtue of Loyalty because it puts a counter on everything and untaps them, so we can kind of have basically pseudo-vigilance this way in dealing damage and getting counters. Again, I really like this card, but I wasn't sure how often we can get up to this 5 or 6 threshold to always have the mana to put these down. We still want to be committing creatures on the board, but again, I think very quickly we'd realize that Coat of Arms and Virtue of Loyalty belong into the deck, but I wanted to kind of see where the deck was without it. The last would be something like Rally of Ranks. 2 mana +1/+1 everything. Again, this could be something that would just quickly get counters onto our creatures with the Okinec and start to help build the value that way. But let's end our time today play testing a hand or two. Let's see what Okinec cats can do for us. A 3 mana starting hand seems pretty darn good. We have a 2 mana creature, which is cool, and we can start working our way towards 4 with 3 mana, so I like it. Turn 1, we see a Mosswork Bridge, but I'm not going to start with that because I want to kind of get this cat down turn 2 to get our plays working. We're going to get that plains down. Turn 2, we see Kemba Conjuring. So I play this Brushland down, and now we have a choice. Do we dump the 2 mana 2/2 with Lifelink or the Kemba? I mean, I think our play next turn, at the moment we don't have a play, so it's going to be a tap land. So we could do 1 this turn and 1 next turn. Let's put the Lifelinker down this turn, taking a life from that Brushland, and we'll see what we have next turn. Turn 3, we're going to have to put a land in tap, which is kind of unfortunate because we got this Flying Skyguard, but that's okay. Let's put the Garenbrig in tapped, and we'll play Kemba now, not taking the 1, and have another creature on board ready to go. Turn 4, would have loved an untapped land for Okinec, but that's okay. We put the Mosswork Bridge in tapped. We will go 1, 2, 3. What's the Hideaway? 4. This is a hard choice. I really like the Sky Hunter. It could be a great card to play when we have 10 or more, but I think I also like something like Unbreakable Formation as a card that can help get us some value on a potential combat. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to pick the Unbreakable Formation to get us some counters and vigilance as long as we cast it in our main turn. All right, 3 mana. Now we can play that Skyguard flying, and it comes in to gain us that 2 back. I like these flyers because as they get bigger, they're going to be harder for our opponents to deal with. All right, turn 4. I don't think we have anything in our hand that we like more than Okinec. Obviously, this turn when we go to attack, Okinec won't get us the buff. So I guess we could consider this. We could cultivate and harden scales, get an extra land down, try to play more next turn. We could get the Ajani out and put +1/+1 counters on everything so that next turn things already have a buff and they're going to get buffed again. But again, Okinec needs to attack, so that would put us on a 2-turn thing before we get that. I think I would just dump out Okinec here and get it ready for next turn to attack. Now this turn, I think I would put down a Johnny and give everyone the +1/+1 counter, go to attack, and they get an extra one. And now, things are going to get better. That's 5, 7, 9. We are 1 power off the hideaway for free on Mosswort Bridge, so we could do that the next turn. And again, I think this is going to help us push forward into combat in the middle of the game and try to start hitting our opponents and having good, hopefully a good return. So 3 lands here. We have the Roaming Throne, the King of the Pride for the buff. We do have the Open the Armory, which can let us go get our choice of equipment, which is pretty cool. But let's start this. Turn 1, we'll put in this. We'll put in a forest, and we'll get this masterwork down. Can't use anything of it yet, but that's certainly okay. Turn 2, we put down the plains, and I think we will just go ahead and open the armory here. I'm trying to think of what equipment bodes the best for us in this scenario. I think we just want to get something efficient. I'm thinking maybe something like Shadow Spear could be cool. That could get us some trample and lifelink, which isn't a bad thing. Hammer and Nazan wouldn't be bad either because we can move it around depending on what comes in. But I think I'm going to get the Andoril. It feels like the card that we want a little bit more, especially once we start to go a teeny bit wider onto our board state. Turn 3, we'll get that plains down. We've got access to 3 mana. Kemba is 3 mana and can start making us cats as soon as we put things onto it. So I think we'll do that. We'll put Kemba down there. Turn 4, we have the Bountiful Promenade. So now we do have enough mana for Okinec. The question becomes, do we put another cat down and attach up the Masterwork? Do we put King of the Pride down now and maybe get everything ready for next turn? I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to play the Hardened Scales and the King of the Pride. Well, this should have... Oh, that's right. Okinec needs to attack, so maybe I should have put him down first. I think that makes more sense, right? Because it needs to attack to get the buff. So I say we put it down this turn, and then the next turn we would put King of the Pride and that Hardened Scales down now, because now King of the Pride is buffing these up, so they're already going to get the counters. They're going to get more counters that way. And then this turn, we wouldn't have enough to attach the attach the equipment, so I think we just put the Roaming Throne down, calling cats, go to combat, attack with all 3 of them, and now they're getting twice the amount of counters, and they're going to start hitting pretty hard. And then the next turn, maybe we look to attach up some equipment, 6 mana, play the Andoril, attach it to Okinec, attach the Masterwork maybe to Kemba. Actually, it would make more sense to attach both of them to Kemba so we can get some more some more cats. We can go wider that way. Take another big attack, get more counters, and kind of go from there. So hopefully you can start to see what this deck's trying to go. It's going to be a little bit slower, but I think it sounds like it could be fun to mix the +1/+1 counters with this more Kindred or Tribal style deck. But let me know what you think of this down in the comment section below, and I will catch you guys next.